Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and I have special guest with me, Frisco Fahs. How you doing, Frisco?
Not bad, not bad. How about yourself?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. And this past weekend, I wasn't able to catch you in person, but you did get a top 8 finish at the North American Nationals with your version of Soul Striker, or not Soul Striker, the Super Saiyan God Goku. Yeah, not Soul Striker, that'd be amazing. But the one that's often compared to Soul Striker, and probably the most unique build of the top 32. I guess first, did you expect this leader to do as well as it did in this top 32 for this weekend?
Matt and I were talking about it too and also Richard Zapp. We were
Mm-hmm.
probably expecting less than 10 decks with this leader at the whole tournament. I was going to say less than 5, but
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of teams that brought this leader in
Yeah.
itself, which was shocking to me.
Yeah.
Because like I didn't know how much level I was going to get. I knew it was a top leader. I'm glad that everyone else kind of got on the same mindset and kind of was testing and figured it out themselves as well.
Yeah, and I'm not on like one of the bigger teams, obviously. So I really am curious if it's just like some of those teams just like all had the spice, or if it was just a lot of independent discoveries. For you, it seems it was an independent. You guys thought this leader was broken, you went with it, but it is very curious for those topping lists.
Yeah, I mean, at Origins, I played a very similar list to this
Mm-hmm.
back this year as well. And as soon as Soul Striker, got nerfed, and this was like the natural progression of like good
Mm-hmm.
stuff, blue deck leader, and nothing came out since then that would replace this. So it was like just a natural move. Like, all right, anything that you built with Soul Striker, try it with Crimson and see if we can make it work.
Sure. And for you have just a history of playing Invoker and pretty much every leader that's not the Invoker leader. So you're always trying to like I know you played it at launch, you played in Soul Striker, you've probably played in some third deck that I don't even know. But what? So and you said that you played this deck at Gen Con as well.
At Origins, I
At
played a
Origins,
very
sorry, at
similar.
Origins.
Yeah, I played at Origins, a very similar version, but obviously Zenkai wasn't out, and the Zenkai gave it a lot of strength and a lot of merit to bring it back,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll kind of discuss it as the deck profile comes on, kind of thing.
Definitely, definitely. Well,
Yeah,
cool. Well, let's just jump on into it. I would just say if you want to just kind of go over like the basic maybe end game combo for it, that might be the best start for it.
yeah. So we could definitely start there. We'll just start with like the red blue cards in
Mm-hmm.
itself. You have Rival Seeker. It's 3 drop. Basically, this card works if you have 2 red blue extra cards in your warp,
Mm-hmm.
and then you grab those cards, put them in your hand. You can play the 6 drop, the Ultra Instinct, the Explosion. You could play that card on top of it, which also basically untaps 3 energy. Even if your drop is empty, you could choose the 3 cards that you put from your energy in your drop back from your drop back in your energy in
Mm-hmm.
active mode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then we go into the 6 drop, as you said, this guy.
Yeah, so you have to look at this card a little bit differently. Like, so Invoker basically back in the day, like traditional Surge Leader said, like, hey, I'm gonna burn you for 4 or 5 or 6 life, back when it was degenerate.
Mm-hmm.
But you basically have to look at this card as like, hey, is a 1 energy burn to 35k single strike good enough right now? And that answer should be yes, right? So like,
Yeah.
yeah, right. So if a 1 drop 35k burn two is not good enough, then I don't know if we're definitely playing the same game, because like, especially with the blue mirrors, right, where it's hard to get these point of damage in, this deck scales over well past turn 5. So if we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna go turn 5 and beyond, usually this deck is gonna have the edge because you can basically have them protect lives, 4 and 3, other than people trying to protect life, their last life or second to last life from like Champa and things like that.
Yeah, and everyone like wants to get down to 4, right? Like 4 is like when stuff starts happening for a lot of leaders, and so
Yeah.
this conjunction with the secret rare is kind of what pushes that extra damage pretty easily.
Yeah, this secret rare definitely makes the deck like kind of brings it together. This wasn't obviously this card wasn't released back when I originally played it in Origins. But,
Mm-hmm.
essentially what this says, return everything back into their hand. It can turn off God Sealing as well. So you have to remember that. And even if you do God Sealing it, you can just play it again in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Which I've done multiple times
Yeah.
because this deck has an absurd amount of energy use, especially if you have your leader skill with it.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing them down, this deck can actually bring them down from 4 to 0 relatively easy. So I don't know if a lot of people caught this with the secret rare. It says you can switch any 2 cards to active mode,
Yes.
which is even red blue energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So just to skip over to the Z deck, you can play your Defender of Life first from bring them down to 4 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
and then you can play Go on Secret Rare, untap a red blue energy, you run them from 3 to 2,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can play Rival Seeker into the 6-drop in the same turn and bring them down from 2 to 0.
Yeah.
So you can actually burn from 4 to 0. Yeah, actually more than that depending on the turn, but that's like a 4 to 0 burn without any interaction on turn 5.
Yeah, very, very low. Obviously, this has deflect already. As it's
Yes.
what Rival Seeker is like the weakest chain, right? Because it has no protection at all, right? And it's an active main
Yeah.
instead of an auto. But
Yep. And then you can bait out God Sealings with just playing Rival Seeker, right? So you can play Rival Seeker, they God Sealing, then you can go into Secret Rare, and then you can untap energy and then do it all again.
Yep, for sure. So yeah, I think that's very strong. And then yes, even if you just get to the 6-drop, it untaps 3 essentially, right? And then 1 for your Catastrophic Blow, and then 2 for this. So like it's just there's a lot of pressure at the end game with not a lot of interaction if your opponent doesn't see it too.
Yeah, and what the Go on Secret Rare does that what it didn't have before Hatch, Baby Hatch is a great Secret Rare, but what this card provides is a offensive pressure to bring them down to that extra life that they have to answer and spend energy on, which you didn't have that beforehand, right? And it's basically free or 1 energy depending on how much energy you untap with it. So it puts a lot of pressure on like, hey, I have to actually use my energy defensively to protect my life against this card before you even show them that you have 3-drop and 6-drop in hand, which is probably the most difficult thing for opponents to play around.
Yeah, for sure. And additionally, like you can switch your leader to active, and your leader's auto from attacking is not once per turn. So you get to draw a second card, and you get to get another energy. And the fact that your leader also just can naturally, if you have the active battle, saved up another energy. So a lot of flex energy, as you said before.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. So that is like the main core. That is the end condition for the deck. And then just kind of building a core around it to make sure that you live that long and you kind of get there. So I'll just start off originally. You do have to run a bunch of Saiyans in this deck just to get your Awakening kind of early. I think it's pretty understood that Videl is very good for this. You're also running the Vegeta Harness Power as well.
Yeah, so this card's great if anyone's familiar with like Jocko from set 1. It's basically the same effect of the card, but you can actually use the Jocko effect of bouncing a combo card from under your leader. So basically it makes their combo step weird. And there's a misrepresentation of like, oh, I get to put the combo card back in their hand, but it just kind of like look at it like if the card that they're comboing is coming from their hand originally, you're not actually giving any cards back. You're just reverting a combo card from their hand. You basically made the choice for them. Like, yeah, I didn't actually want you to combo that card.
Yeah.
So that's a mindset that we have to get out of, that you kind of give them the card back when they actually already originally had it. You're just basically reverting a decision that they made already.
Yeah, you are just essentially like telling them that they made the wrong play, right? Because
exactly.
Yeah. So and there are some edge cases too, because we do have like these new Gohan rares too, where they have to be comboed afterwards, and they have to add to Z energy. And in effect, where a lot of people are just comboing one card to build that Z energy, that Vegeta to put that card back into their hand and them not be able to build any Z energy, I think is also very strong.
100% agree. Yep. And then, I have 7 harness powers, basically the Videl and Vegeta. You have to pitch 5 Saiyans within the first, like, three turns. So 7 seemed like the right number for me. You have to have at least 3 in the leader to get the full effect, right? Because you want to obviously pitch 3 one time and then 1 time, 2 times, basically over the course of the game. So 7 felt like the right number.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And then you do have a bunch of other stands. And even though a lot of these are just 10k combos, you don't have to actually combo with them to get them in the drop, just with our leader's front side ability. So that recursion, I think, is good there too. What else would you like to pinpoint from this deck?
Just how to facilitate the actual combo itself. As far as what you need to do is you need to resolve 1 red-blue extra card, either Sleepy Boy or Phantom Fist, which I've played Phantom Fist for free or for 2 energy sometimes. If someone shows you a Brawley Crown of Retribution and you need to tap energy, but you don't want to like commit a battle card and swing with it, you can just pay 2 with this and shrink something and untap 1 energy at the end of turn, which then turns on your Rival Seeker free 10k combo. So just keep that in mind. Or you can play 2 Trunks to Time Regulator over the course of the first 5 turns of the game. If you just resolve 2 of these, you draw 2 warp 1, right? So you just warp a red-blue extra card, which does the work for you.
Yeah.
And then this is basically free Z energy. I rarely attack with this card. Basically, I'm either comboing with it on my leader swing or on a unison swing,
Mm-hmm.
just to either kill a threat or push in damage. And it's free Z energy, which is good.
Yeah, and just for viewers too, the reason that the warping these cards are important is just for Rival Seeker because you do need to have two of those red blue multicolor extra cards in your warp.
Exactly.
All right, cool.
Yeah, and other things that why basically I brought this deck back from Origins, like, and it got itself some life. Prior blue decks were very focused on 3-cost unisons,
Mm-hmm.
Vegeta, as you saw Tapion over the course of the tournament, things like that. This leader doesn't necessarily have to do that anymore because they're not the best cards for blue. And Black Smoke, right?
Yeah.
Once Black Smoke got introduced, and Blue's biggest weakness was 2-cost unisons because it never really generated enough attacks to deal with it in time. Mm-hmm. So this card just fit in the deck naturally because any 2-cost unison that you played just instantly got deleted with this card, which put in an enormous amount of work over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, this is more or less just like a blue card, even though it's black. Like blue probably gets the most value from it. It was missing barrier removal pretty desperately, and so for 2 costs to remove something 7 or less is pretty absurd on a card with deflect. And you most of the time you can just have floating energy, so two to draw 2 is also good. And no doubt you also played it to just mill more cards to probably hit more Saiyans to potentially awaken a little bit earlier too.
I haven't done it, but it hasn't crossed my mind of like that is definitely a line of play that you can definitely do. That is not wrong by any stretch of the means.
Yeah, so it's a good card. I don't think if you're watching this video and that's what you took away from it, you've been missing this game.
It's funny because blue is the best color to utilize that card, especially with this leader, because it either costs 1 or 0 energy depending on if you're doing it on your awakening turn, which makes it even more strong of a card than it already was.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think the only other card we need to talk about, I think Super Combo makes sense, Majin Buu always makes sense, is the Gohan Power Reclaimed. How strong was this card for you?
So the card is, it has like Realm of the Gods Beers type effect and whatnot. The threat of the card is better than almost the card itself. Mm-hmm. Everyone always assumes you have it, which you probably always do have it because
you ran 4.
Yeah, you're right. So it's a card that people are always aware of, especially this deck is a little bit more of a passive deck and you're okay leaving 2 to 3 energy open. So if we're playing against Sin or other decks, they have to always activate main on Rush Attack Vegeta or always give Sin barrier. Right, they can never leave it to chance, and that's what makes the card as good as it is in itself. Also, just 1 cost removal, 5 cost or less. It's just mid-combat defensive energy you get to use. Sometimes blue has more energy than it can use defensively.
Mm-hmm. And then if that's the case too, you can just pay 3 instead, and then get a bigger removal and a deflect triple attack for the next turn or something.
Yep. The card's absurd. It's another reason why this deck is as good as itself, because it did as well as it did, is because this card is really good and it helped clean the board, make it nice and clean. So then you can actually use your leader swings on leader 2 and make them defend it or take life, which was always good.
Yeah. I think that is it for the big cards for the main deck. So going into the Z deck, you've got 6 different cards in a 7-card deck. So let's just sequentially go through them. So first is the Awakened Onslaught. Yeah,
so this card's great because basically 1 energy, pitch a red-blue extra card from hand to draw a card, right? So if you're in a pinch and you only have 1 in your drop or warp and you need to pitch a Caplo to do your thing, you can pay 1 energy, play this guy. Pitch a Caplo, draw a card, which feels good in itself, right? And then you warp it, and then you can do your chain. It's also board removal. It does everything that you need it to do to increase consistency in the deck.
Yeah, seems very strong. The only thing is that 3 Z energy I could see could probably be a little bit costly at times, but other than that, Stronger Together.
This card is absurd. Zap and Matt and I were always talking about this card because basically what Gohan Secret Rare bounces everything and play back to their hand. And then after you burn them with the 6-drop, and right now you can usually give them a 15 or 16 card hand. Then you can just reset the hand and have them go back to 10. And even if you pass turn, right? And you're at 3 or 4 life with like 8 cards in hand, or even 7, just say they're still at 1 life and 10 cards in hand, and you have a Go On Seeker on board, you don't necessarily feel behind,
No.
rather than having them have 16 cards and having all that gas coming back at you.
Yeah. Yeah. We've seen this effect before, and I'd say never been prevalent, but I'd say, as you're saying, in this deck specifically, it's very good, especially with the secret rare that you're choosing. Bouncing cards back to hand and then making them essentially discard them seems pretty strong.
Yeah, a similar effect was Tyranny's Cost with another red-blue extra card.
Yes.
It was really good against the Icarus decks in last Nationals, which, I definitely did because they had 16, 17 plus card hands too.
Yes, that is very true. Beerus, Area Annihilator.
This card's just funny because it does everything that you want it to do. It's barrier removal, it's traditional generic removal, only 2Z, has barrier itself. This card is just absurd. It does so much pressure to leader while removing the board and getting cards out of their hand to protect life, because if they know you're going to burn them, they have to overprotect life, and they put themselves in a spot where they can't kill you on the next turn. So this card just does everything it wants to do. You just have to watch out for the traditional things of Wolf Fang and Final Flash and things like that. But Black Smoke gets rid of unisons, and this card just does everything you want it to do. There's not enough much to say about it. This card's absurd.
Yeah, I think fine. Like red definitely got like the best Z battle cards out the gate, but blue and green definitely I think got some good ones. And then Defender of Life we kind of already talked about. Just 1 burn damage out of the Z deck is just good enough.
It's just basically just imagine a cap blow in your Z deck. That's what this card is.
Cell Awakening, we know this card's pretty good too, but any specific extra things about him?
Applying extra crit pressure on top of Go On Seeker crit pressure is definitely nothing to scoff at. Wide board removal. Blue getting all this removal just makes blue really strong, and this is one of the reasons why, for sure.
And then lastly, Vegito as well. And probably, did you ever go into this weekend? Or
I did, yeah. Sometimes, like in blue mirrors, where you can't kill the unison, or you don't draw your Go On Seeker and need to play this like longer game. I did cast it not quite a bit, but I did cast it. Card's finding itself. However, if you're playing blue mirrors and you're playing crimson, it's just gonna get black smoked, or it's just gonna get Go On Seeker. Like it's just gonna die like instantly. So I wouldn't expect this to last multiple turns, but it does what it needs you to do as far as getting you use out of your energy, provide a threat, provide the removal, etc.
Yeah. And in general, Z deck feels solid. Any changes you'd make are?
One thing that I probably took away was probably maybe running the Z leader in itself. Basically, it'd be like a Turning the Tide in the Z deck without actually running Turning the Tide, because you're on 7 energy and it has double strike crit. In that, with Go On Secret Rare also crit, you can potentially bring them from 6 to 0 without having them see any life and winning the game. So I'd probably run that just because the blue's going to pick up more steam, obviously, after this Nationals, and as more blue decks come about, that leader gets better. As the leader gets better.
Yeah, and what would you take out for that?
What's funny is you can actually side deck Z cards. That's
true. That is true.
So I'd probably maybe take out a Beerus and just go in one of everything, and then just probably side an extra Beerus or something like that.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, then talking about that side deck, we have yours here.
Yes.
A lot of them, I would say, are just adds to the deck. What would you say like the most sided card you had from the side deck?
The Black Smoke, 100%.
Okay.
You could definitely consider just having 3 in the main and just saving yourself a side deck space, which is definitely feasible in itself. Absolute Release Ball. Zap has been trying to get me on this card for months. But funny interactions with this, as blue mirrors and someone God Sealings your threat, you can actually activate this card, even because God Sealing has a second effect of coming into play. You can actually Absolute Release Ball, even though it can't hit it, but you can still take a life to untap an energy and get it back. And then with leader skill too. So then you can basically untap 2 energy, like any threat that you played, and then basically get that energy back and just replay it.
Yeah, because it doesn't. This is not a cost. This is not a cost.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
The cost is being a blue leader in 4 or less. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I kind of see it. I could see why Zap's on it at least. That's definitely.
Yeah, exactly. The negate is basically for red, yellow, sin. The main times I was losing to Red Yellow Sin is when they Almighty, and I was already at
Mm-hmm.
3. That's the main way I like lost games. So I was
Gotcha.
like, you know what? Just need it.
You can't be negated. Why not?
Yeah.
And then Sandman. What about him?
So this card was actually for Sin as well. So Sin doesn't actually have any barrier removal. Their
Mm-hmm.
only barrier removal is Vegeta Secret Rare, right?
Yeah.
So if you go on Secret Rare and you reset the board and you establish this card, even if you're not trying to win the game with like that turn, you go on Secret Rare, you just needed to reset the board state and you slam this down. Basically makes their 8-drop feel terrible, right? Because they can never swing into it just because it's going to die, even if they get barrier.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can still combo over any swings. They go into active mode and and still kill another.
And then you get another one. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, right. And obviously the deck with unbreakable super combos, right? Protecting it doesn't feel awful.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it very hard for them to go over this card.
Yeah. Yeah. And just for chat too, revenge does not choose. So if it you can still revenge on something with a barrier. So just revenge is not a really common keyword, so I just want to make sure.
It's not. I was looking for like a barrier blocker guy against Sin, it's because they can't deal with barrier and blockers are just gets around almighty. And I was like, this card just does everything else.
Yeah, this one sometimes my opponent would establish this, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to play this game anymore. Like this is just
exactly.
Card.
Yeah. Exactly. Especially if you don't have an answer for it, it just feels awful.
All right, and then just Undying and probably the Super Saiyan God Goku as well.
Yeah, so this card's funny because if people want to play Crown or Retribution and then you have 3 energy open, if they play Crown and you counter with this, you only have 1 energy open, and then you don't have to bounce Crown back to the hand. You can choose whatever, but then you get to untap an energy back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're basically paying 1 energy for them not to do anything with Crown. They get no value out of it, and you can still remove their board.
Yeah.
So imagine if Sin has like a 4-drop on board and they crown you, you could like, all right, I'll play this, I'll bounce the 4-drop, and then untap an energy, and you got no value out of your crown.
Yeah. Did you end up doing that this weekend?
It didn't actually come up.
Okay.
Yeah, I we can go over matchups in a minute, but yeah, I only played 1, maybe 2 Sins.
Okay, but I could definitely see that just being like a mean, like, dang, like another, like, I don't want to play this anymore. Like
Exactly.
And then the last are Deadly Defender-esque Goku.
Yeah, so this card is basically a unison killer that's 3 costs or more because Black Smoke does everything else you need. So anything like blue unison or whatnot, or any other blue mirrors that you just need to swing at unisons, this is where it comes into place, right? So you want them to feel bad that they attacked and overexcited, you play this, and then you kind of try to swing back and try to kill their unison with it.
Gotcha.
You can definitely do 2 and 1 Champa because you could just like, Champa and any other like lower cost battle card and get like a similar effect to it.
Sure. All right. Well, that is the deck itself. And then day 1, you went X1, correct?
X1-1. I drew
X1.
the last round.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And we I think you were only on stream once this weekend, and that was unfortunately one of your losses. But it was in no. Like it, what was it? Who were you playing against? Who was your?
But it was Vidal. It was the green Vidal.
Oh, the green Vidal. Yeah, it went into time. If you had one more turn, I think you just could burn with Defender of Life and win the game, right?
Yeah, if I had 3 seconds.
3 seconds.
Cast them.
Yeah. You didn't have to charge either. You're just there.
I basically said draw, skip, trench, play something, right? Like that's what I said, and it just like nope, time was already called. Like okay.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
For sure, but yeah, I think, and that was a very interesting, matchup. I think for you too. But what would you say is the easiest matchup and the hardest matchup for this deck?
The hardest matchup for this deck would still probably be like a red yellow sin. It probably will be, but the thing is, it's very draw play dependent and secret rare dependent. Like if I'm on the play and I see Gohan secret rare, like Sin doesn't feel bad at all. But if I'm on the draw and I don't see Gohan secret rare, that's when it feels bad. Against blue decks, I feel pretty good because Burning Life is good and it skips a lot of the dealing damage part of it. So I would say blue decks are probably what I'm most favored against. If anything's worse, it'd probably be red yellow sin, if anything.
Gotcha. And then in your, I guess, what were your day 1 matchups, real quick?
Yeah, so I played blue Vegito SS4, the reboot Ramp Goku, the set 1 that they rebooted, Trunks Vegeta, Sin, Vidal, another SS4, a Sin, SS4.
Gotcha. And then how did your top 32 run go after that?
Yeah, I played Gamma in top 32, and then I played Beerus in top 16, both blue decks. So it just, especially against Gamma, the killing Unison, and then they don't even have God Sealing, right?
No.
So even right, they can't, So the only thing you have to play around is the Aandroidd 18 counterplay when they have a Unison on board. But if you go on Secret Rare their Boo Unison, they can't play that.
They can't play it. No.
Yeah. So that doesn't feel that great for them.
Yeah.
With Beerus, it can be tricky if they go way extreme over the top, right? So if they go into like Divinity and and then try to go way over the top of it, I could see it being like a problem. But if they go more mid-rangey and just play kind of similar to what SS3 does, just a bunch of like 6-drops, but don't go super over the top, then this deck can take advantage of that because they don't have anything that could scale as well as I do.
Yeah, I definitely think you definitely have like a better end game condition for it. I did talk to Daniel, and Daniel is like an AZ native, so
yeah,
he said he went into that match saying like he was moderately confident that it could be winnable. So you're making it sound less close than he did, but you did end up going to game 3, yeah.
We did, yeah. To game 2, you turn the tide. I had a 6-drop on board, right? So if I draw like a cap blow, I just win, or I draw a Rival Seeker, I win, because you can activate Rival Seeker to grab cap blows, even if you don't have a 6-drop in your hand, right? So I just I needed that, and I was 1 card off. I drew like 6 cards that turn, and the next card on top of the deck was a Rival Seeker, and then I was like, okay, there you go. And so because I Black Smoked, Unbreakable, Super Combo, I was digging for it, and I was 1 card shy.
Dang.
But it's okay. We took game 3. Went on. It is what it is.
And then your top 8 match was against the Future Trunks, or Trunks of Vegeta.
Yeah, game 1. We see each other's deck list, right? So he has 1 Final Flash, obviously 1 Power with Super Saiyan. I was on the draw because he's higher seed. Turn 2. This is like the biggest turning point of the game. Turn 2 at Beerus, I awaken. And then he has Final Flash and Power of Super Saiyan on his turn 3 to negate Beerus and Power of Super Saiyan, so I couldn't swing or activate Beerus at all.
Yeah.
So he drew both of his 1-ofs in the first 3 turns, which is the biggest swing.
Yeah.
We went to game 3, and it was definitely close games.
Yeah, he definitely, his list was very, very like I would keep like the double mirror, double Champa, double cooler. Like he's wanting that combo. In. Yeah, all in.
Yeah, he wanted it. He wanted it. I respect that.
Yeah. Well, Frisco, thank you very much for sitting down and talking with me with this deck. I really appreciate it. You're one of one of the chillest people in this card game who's like tops consistently, which is really, really cool to see. And like even like when your losses or like some things didn't really go your way, I can definitely tell you're very still chill, and you love this card game and you keep playing that. That's really cool to see.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, exactly. That's why, I even hung out with the guy that I lost to with Vidal. His name's Mark. I was like, hey, it's not your fault. Don't worry about it. I'm not mad at you. It is what it is. It happens all the time. And it just you gotta turn it around. You have to stay positive, especially in tournaments like this, a super long one, right? As soon as you get down, you're not only playing against your opponent, but you're playing against yourself too. And as soon as you get that negative doubt in your head, you're just gonna go downhill from there.
For sure. Well, any shout outs or anything to close the video?
Yeah, definitely shout out to your channel as well. I definitely listen to you guys all the time. Listen to you specifically. Great work. Keep it up. PPG ran a great event. I know it went long, but it was back to back, man.
Yeah.
And they did a tremendous job running the entire event. And obviously the boys, as far as Matt Coombs and Richard Zapp and Jose Mercado, we definitely tested quite a bit, a little bit more lax than last nationals, but we took a little different approach and not going full like part-time job on it. We took a little bit easier, which is okay because I didn't want to burn myself out on it.
Yeah, it was definitely a really great event, and yeah, it was killer. Like ends at midnight, like be back in 8 hours. Like what?
Yeah, no, I was exhausted the next day. But then the way you got to look at it, right? You got to think positive. Everyone's exhausted.
Yes.
You're not the only one exhausted. Everyone's exhausted. So you can't look at that as a downside because everyone's playing under the same conditions.
Definitely. Well, again, thank you very much for doing this interview with me. It means a lot to me. Again, congrats on your finish with this deck. Hopefully you find another way to break Invoker in the next couple sets as well.
Yeah, stay tuned. You never know.
Cool. Appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you all next time.